Okay, so you're here for another deep dive, and today we're looking at some really interesting stuff just from some online discussions and analyses we found, and it kind of lays out this roadmap almost, for some pretty significant shifts that could be coming our way, and they touch on everything from like a total overhaul of our food system to potentially really big changes in how our finances work,
Right.
and even how our society operates.
Yeah, I mean, looking at the material you shared, there are like two really big interconnected possibilities that stand out.
Yeah.
On the one hand, you've got this like hopeful vision, for the future of food and health in America.
Right.
And this one is really driven by this move towards organic and local practices. But then on the other hand, you've got this this forecast for a much more immediate kind of period of turbulence. And that one touches on like everything from our financial institutions to even our understanding of things that are
Out there.
out there. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
The UFOs and all that.
It's a wild ride.
Yeah.
So what we're going to try to do today in this deep dive is really dig into these big predictions, pull out the core ideas, and explore how they might all fit together.
Okay.
And of course, as always, we want to make sure we're giving you clear
Clear.
and understandable information.
Absolutely.
Okay, so
Where should we begin?
speaking of feeling good,
Yeah.
one of the sources actually had this very specific and kind of random detail about a discount code.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's pure wacky woo.
Pure wacky woo.
All one word, all lowercase, over at purebulk.com.
Yeah.
Apparently, it might be good through this weekend for their pure sleep products and other supplements like amino acids and proteins.
That's a pretty specific detour to start off with.
Oh, right? It's like right out of left field.
Yeah.
But the person who mentioned it said they actually use these products, especially as they're getting ready to turn 72 this year. And and they're focusing on staying strong and, combating that age-related muscle loss, which is
Sarcopenia.
sarcopenia,
Yeah.
right?
It's a tough one.
So it's like a little personal endorsement there, I guess. Okay. But let's zoom out from individual health to like the potential health of the whole nation.
Okay.
There was this mention of a Make America Healthy Again initiative.
Mm-hmm.
And it came with this prediction from like way back around the year 2000.
Okay.
The basic idea was that the U.S. would eventually become this huge player in the pure and organic food market.
What's interesting about that is how long ago that prediction was made.
Right.
Like, we're talking over 2 decades, and we haven't really seen that happen.
No, not on a large scale.
Not on a large scale, no.
But here's where it gets interesting. The source material points to what RFK Jr. is doing right now.
Okay.
Trying to make certain chemicals in our food illegal and actually putting those changes into law. So the suggestion is that this could be the thing that actually makes that old prediction come true.
Okay.
That the U.S. becomes this leading producer of organic foods.
I mean, if you think about it, it makes sense that kind of regulatory change driven by a focus on public health could totally transform our agricultural practices.
Right.
And the entire food industry, for that matter.
Yeah, and the vision they lay out is really specific.
Yeah.
We're talking about more urban farms popping up.
Wow.
And really shortening the distance between where our food is grown and where we actually eat it.
So that would mean like the end of picking fruits and vegetables when they're still green just so they can survive the trip to the grocery store.
Exactly.
That's a huge shift.
Imagine tomatoes that actually taste like tomatoes.
Yeah, that'd be amazing.
Freshness, quality, all of that.
And not to mention the reduction in food spoilage and the environmental impact.
Oh, yeah.
Shorter transportation, less waste.
Absolutely.
It could even revitalize local economies and make our food systems more resilient.
Oh.
It's a win-win.
Okay, so the initial forecast apparently said they would take like 7 years
7 years.
to really see a huge shift in U.S. farm production
Okay.
with noticeable progress in the first year.
So like a pretty established new system by 2032.
Yeah, 2032, which is
That's just around the corner.
right around the corner.
I mean, timelines like that, you always have to take them with a grain of salt.
Of course.
Predicting big systemic changes over a decade, it involves a lot of variables.
Yeah.
But the fact that this old prediction seems to be lining up with what's happening with policy now,
Yeah.
it makes it a lot more interesting.
It does. And here's where things get a little bit unusual.
Okay.
The source mentions that getting rid of chemtrails is a necessary step for this whole pure food clean agriculture system.
Chemtrails.
Yeah, and they also give a 7-year timeline for that to happen.
I mean, this definitely raises some questions about what they're assuming here.
Right.
And how all these predicted changes are connected in their view. Like, the whole idea of eliminating chemtrails is a big topic in itself.
It is.
And there's a lot of debate about it.
Mm-hmm.
But if it did happen, it would have massive effects on the environment.
Absolutely. Okay, so that was the
good news.
the potentially brighter side of things.
Yeah.
Healthier food, healthier environment.
Right.
But now we're going to shift gears.
Okay.
And get into some much more turbulent territory.
Turbulent.
Yeah, the financial predictions.
Oh, boy.
So this is where we really need to brace ourselves because...
Yeah, this is where things get a little rocky.
Yeah.
So this part of the material talks about these like temporal markers in data that line up with astrological events.
Really?
Yeah, and they specifically mention Heidi Vandenberg's work in Vedic astrology as the source for these connections.
Okay, so Vedic astrology.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So apparently there are all these different Vedic astrological alignments that are happening this May. Yeah. And they're predicted to set the stage for some really big financial effects that'll last through the summer and into the fall.
Wow.
And this is supposedly lining up with all this existing and emerging data that points towards a period of huge financial instability.
I mean, I got to say, using astrological alignments to forecast financial trends, that's not exactly conventional.
No, it's definitely not mainstream.
But the source really emphasizes that these alignments seem to be happening at the same time as these patterns in the data.
So a correlation.
Yeah, a correlation, even if we don't totally understand the connection.
Right.
Okay, so this leads to a pretty big claim.
Okay, I'm listening.
The potential emergence of some pretty significant financial information in June.
June?
Yeah. And the source suggests that this might not be like a direct discovery,
okay,
but more of a side effect of something else coming to light.
So like a ripple effect.
Yeah, exactly.
Interesting.
And the core of the financial concern here revolves around this potential revelation of a black market or a black operation going on within the Federal Reserve.
Within the Federal Reserve.
Yeah, and the allegation is that they're creating U.S. dollars illegally.
Dollars that aren't recorded on the official books.
Exactly.
Wow.
So think about it for a second.
Okay.
Money being created, entering the economy, but completely outside of the official system.
That's a huge problem.
Right, and it gets even more unsettling because they're saying that interest might still be being paid on these unofficial dollars.
As they're circulating in the economy.
Yeah, and the source points out that it's really tough to even estimate the scale of this.
Yeah, how do you even measure something like that?
Right. They say it could be anywhere from hundreds to potentially 1,000 times more than what's officially acknowledged.
If even the lower estimates are true, that could completely destabilize our entire financial system.
Totally. And now here's where things get really interesting.
Okay, lay it on me.
They're alleging a connection to the UFO phenomena. Yeah, they're saying that this illegally created money is being used to fund the whole UFO industry and all the efforts to reverse engineer any technology that might have been recovered.
So they're basically saying that there's this massive secret slush fund being used to cover up and research UFOs.
And they even suggest that they're spending more money on keeping it all secret
than on the actual research itself.
Yeah, so it's like this whole shadow system.
With potentially massive amounts of money being funneled through unofficial channels.
Right, and it's all shrouded in secrecy.
And corruption.
They mention money laundering and individuals profiting by skimming off the top.
It's a pretty disturbing picture.
Yeah. Okay, so now let's tie these two seemingly separate issues together.
The financial stuff and the UFOs.
Right. The source predicts that there's going to be this big release of information related to UFOs.
When do they say that this is happening?
Particularly around the next Mercury retrograde in July.
July.
Yeah. And they emphasize that the UFO information might come out for different reasons than the financial revelations. But the two are linked because of this alleged illegal funding.
So it's like two sides of the same coin.
Exactly.
This illegal money is fueling both the UFO secrecy and potentially leading to its exposure.
Right. And here's another prediction.
Hit me.
They say the government might actually start offering rewards to people.
To regular citizens?
Yeah, for information about UFOs and any related financial trails.
Wow.
And they even suggest that AI could play a role in citizen-led audits.
So, like, using technology to try and track this money, that's fascinating.
Right.
It's like this potential breakdown of trust in official channels and a move towards more direct citizen involvement.
Yeah, like we're going to figure this out ourselves.
Exactly.
Okay, but now let's talk about the potential societal impact of all this.
Of the UFO disclosure.
Yeah, they say it's going to be massive.
I can imagine.
And they specifically point to the likely undermining of major religions.
Right.
Judaism, Catholicism, and much of Christianity.
Because their teachings don't really align with the idea of extraterrestrial life.
Exactly.
I mean, that would be a huge shift in how people understand the world.
Yeah, it's like the whole foundation of their belief system could be shaken.
Totally.
And this is where things take a really disturbing turn.
Okay.
The source predicts a potential backlash against what they call an organized substrate within our society, which is based with the rabbis.
Okay.
And they say this could lead to violence against synagogues and rabbis having to disguise themselves.
That's incredibly concerning.
Yeah, it's a really disturbing prediction.
It highlights how fear and scapegoating can emerge during times of huge societal change.
Right.
And it's never okay to target any group based on their beliefs.
Absolutely. And it's unsettling to even have to talk about this.
Yeah.
But it's part of the source materials.
Right.
Okay, let's move on to something else.
Okay.
The real estate market.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, the source predicts a crash.
A real estate crash.
Yeah, and they point to Warren Buffett selling off his real estate holdings as a possible early warning sign.
That's interesting.
Right, so they're saying this crash is probably going to happen before the whole illegal dollar situation is fully revealed.
And it's going to hit both commercial and residential properties.
Yeah, they think the market's been artificially inflated.
By these unaccounted for funds.
Exactly. People using this money to buy property at inflated prices.
Creating this unsustainable demand.
Driving up the values.
Yeah, and when that bubble bursts,
this could be ugly.
Counties are going to see a huge drop in their tax base.
Leading to layoffs.
Essential workers losing their jobs.
It's a domino effect.
And the source predicts that property values could drop to levels we haven't seen since the Great Depression.
That's a scary thought.
It would have a huge impact on everyone.
Homeowners, lenders, the whole financial system.
And commercial properties could become practically unsellable.
Even at rock bottom prices.
Yeah, because who's going to want to take on the burden of those maintenance costs?
Right, especially during a major economic downturn.
It's a recipe for disaster.
And the source goes even further. They suggest that we're looking at a 20-year process of real estate and asset revaluation.
20 years?
Yeah, with organic farms eventually becoming the most valuable type of commercial property.
That's a huge shift.
Yeah, and they even predict that farmland owned by people like Bill Gates
and Chinese investors
will be seized as a form of retribution.
Wow, so they're talking about a major redistribution of wealth.
Yeah, and a fundamental shift in what we value as a society.
It's a pretty radical vision.
Okay, now let's zoom out even further.
To the entire financial system.
Yeah, so they're predicting a huge downturn in the stock market during this whole period of dollar inflation.
And they say the Federal Reserve might try to prop it up.
But they don't think it'll be very effective.
No. I mean, if the dollar's losing value...
and there's all this extra money floating around.
It's going to be hard to control.
And here's another big claim.
Okay.
They predict that the whole concept of stock ownership is basically an illusion.
An illusion?
Yeah. They say there might be way more shares being traded than actually exist.
Because of rehypothecation.
Right. And if that's true...
that's a massive problem.
It means the whole system is built on shaky ground.
And it could collapse at any moment.
So they're forecasting a major upheaval of the financial system.
With the wealthy potentially getting even wealthier.
Right, because hard assets like gold will skyrocket in value when the dollar crashes.
It's a classic flight to safety.
And they also highlight the potential collapse of dollar-backed stablecoins.
And the vulnerability of cryptocurrency exchanges.
Yeah, because they're all operating within this dollar-based economy.
So if the dollar goes down...
they go down with it.
It's all connected.
So the overall picture for the near future is one of major disruptions.
Disruptions.
Yeah, and they say it could all start this summer.
That's earlier than usual.
Yeah, usually financial crashes happen in October.
Right, like the big one in 2029.
But this time...
it could be different.
So we've got these astrological influences. The financial revelations, the potential UFO disclosures.
It's like a perfect storm.
Yeah, but here's the thing.
What's that?
The source ends on a surprisingly optimistic note.
Really?
Yeah, they predict the emergence of what they call a sci-fi world within the next 5 years.
A sci-fi world?
Yeah, and they say that by the time that pure food system is established around 2032,
right,
we'll be living on a completely different planet.
Wow.
with a fundamentally transformed humanity.
So it's like a post-apocalyptic utopia.
Yeah, kind of.
Interesting.
And they say this new world will be built on pure food, pure thinking, and potentially free energy.
Free energy.
Yeah, zero-point energy.
And they think the U.S. could lead the way.
They do. They say the government might resist it at first.
But ultimately, they'll have to embrace it.
Because it'll be the only way forward.
Wow, that's a pretty hopeful vision, considering all the chaos that comes before it.
It is, isn't it?
So to recap, we've got these two very different but potentially interconnected futures.
Great.
A healthier, more sustainable America. But it's going to be a bumpy road to get there.
Yeah, a lot of upheaval along the way.
Financial instability, societal change.
Potentially even paradigm-shifting revelations about UFOs.
It's a lot to take in.
It is, and we encourage you to think about what all this could mean for you.
Yeah, how these shifts could impact your life.
And your community.
And as always, approach this information with a critical eye.
Absolutely. Don't just take our word for it.
Do your own research.
So here's a question for you to ponder.
Okay.
What would a society built on pure food, pure thinking, and free energy actually look like?
That's a good one.
And what role could each of us play in navigating these potentially transformative times?
It's something to think about.
It is.